Hello, and welcome to the Rossaround Backstage podcast, talking with artists, technicians, musicians, producers, directors, and all the interesting and talented people that make it all happen for you. Hi, everybody. This is Ross Pallone, and I'm here today in Garden City, New York, with Kenny Dale Johnson from the Chris Isaak Band, the Silvertone. Kenny is a singer and a drummer, and he's been with Chris Isaak for many years. And he's going to tell us the story of his life, so I'll start off right away and ask Kenny, how'd you get into this business, Kenny?
Well, first off, I'm from a small town in Texas called Borger, B-O-R-G-E-R, and it's by Amarillo. So I, like a lot of people my age, were struck with when the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan. Everybody had to be in a band all of a sudden, including me. And it's so weird that this little hick town I'm from, everybody was in a band for a while. Well, I never wised up. I played all through high school playing frat parties and stuff, but I didn't know that you could make a living doing this. No one I'd ever heard. So I moved to Austin, which was an oasis, especially back in 1973. And I got to Austin. I was going to college there. I didn't even bring my drums. I thought, well, it's time to get serious about life. And there's bands everywhere in Austin, and I went, whoa, you can make a living doing this? Look at all these guys, And then I guess it was youthful hubris because I go, well, I'm as good as that guy. So I brought my drums down to Austin and ended up getting gigs right away. And it was a pretty magical time in Austin. I was friends with Stevie Ray Vaughan, and I knew Eric Johnson, and there's so many good players. It was a tiny town then, certainly not as big as it is now, and it was just a thrill. Doug Somm, Jerry Jeff Walker, all these people. I mean, Doug Somm was so much help. I mean, he showed up. He'd show up to your recording session just to say, what are you guys doing? He was like the patron saint. And so then it was like the mid-'70s, and I thought, well, it was like 77. I went, well, it's probably not that way now, Ross, but back then you could only go so far, and you had to go to a coast or Nashville.
Like New York or L.A.
Yeah. Well, I knew some people in San Francisco, that's where I went. I considered Nashville. Some of my friends had moved there, but, I always kind of wanted to go to California. And I went there, fell in love with California, and I've been there ever since.
Now, were you mostly playing country music?
No, not in, I played everything because I was just freelancing, right? Whoever would hire me at that point. So for about 10 years before I met Chris, I was playing, blues and rock, and that's kind of what was going on in San Francisco back then. And it was fortunate because there was a band at every bar then, so everybody needed a drummer. So I struggled at first, but then I started doing well. And then about 1984, it's funny, I was playing some little bar somewhere, and this bass player goes, I just auditioned for this band, and you'd be perfect for them. They've been looking for a drummer for 2 years. I go, well, who is it? And they go, Chris Isaak. He was totally unknown at the time, except he'd had a little rockabilly band in San Francisco called the Silvertone. But I read an article in the paper that said that he just signed a massive deal with Warner Brothers. He hadn't, in fact, but they said that he would go on to do that. But I went, I wasn't that smart, but I was smart enough to know that that's how you got out of the bars. You get with a signed act, or you get signed yourself. So I went and auditioned for them. I was playing a gig with Ronnie Spector. She'd come through town, and I got a tape, and Chris came to see me. I didn't meet him. And he saw me go, well, that gangster-looking guy, I was wearing black vest, and I still had my hair gassed back. And but they gave me an audition. But the tape they gave me was basically the first album was almost done. Back in those days, the record companies would give you like 10 grand, 20 grand. You'd record some songs, and they reserved the right of first refusal.
Yeah.
Well, they were up to 100 grand, which I'd never even heard of, especially in San Francisco. And but I heard the tape and I went, "Oh my God, that guy can sing!" I went, "Oh my gosh, I got to have this gig. I'll do anything," because I never heard anybody sing like that.
Yeah.
And the songs were good too. Considering his first album, he had "Dancing" on there and "Blue Spanish Skies" and "Pretty Girls Don't Cry," which I really loved. So I auditioned and got the gig as it was. But then we didn't play for another few months. And the first time we played was March 1985 on Haight Street, a club called the Night Break. And then we became the biggest band in San Francisco, which actually was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then it took a while. Then that was 85, and Wicked Game didn't really happen until 90, 91. We struggled in the United States a little bit. We were kind of a baby band, but Europe loved us from the get. I mean,
which part of Europe?
Well, it's funny. Back then, the wall was still up. So we're talking 85, 86. Germany was where it was all going on. Hamburg was actually where most of the power music business was out of, that in London. And Hamburg loved us. The Germans go, "Oh my!" The Americans didn't get it. We did the first album sold almost nothing in the States, but Europe went, "Oh my God, this is great." And so Europe, France, and Holland, those three played. We did whole tours of just those countries.
Wow.
And they kept it. We'd go over to Europe twice a year. And I'll never forget the first time we played Paris. We're still a baby band. So this is like fall of 85. Our first gig was in March of 85. We played the Petite Rex, which is right next to the Grand Rex, where we've played many times. There's a little club. They went crazy over us, and we're all looking at each other like, "Oh my God!" I mean,
we're rock stars.
No one's ever gone crazy before. So that was a love affair with the French that we still have to this day.
And who was in the band at that time?
Rolly, who's still with us. We were just a 4-piece then. Chris and Jimmy Wilsey, the guitar player, original guitar player.
So did you and Rolly start the same time?
No, it's funny. I got the gig with Chris, so they went, "Okay, you're the drummer." And, for whatever that was, they hadn't even played a show yet. But I believed in him. I go, "That guy can sing." And he's special, still is. And so we needed a bass player. So we auditioned every bass player in San Francisco that I knew, all my buddies, and they were all lackadaisical about it. I was kind of embarrassed. I went, "But that's San Francisco for you." I'm going, "This is your ticket out of here, pal." But no one did it. So this is during the era of the video. It's 85. It's like February. So we're going down to LA to make a video. I went, "Wow, okay." We didn't have a bass player. So we go down there, and Chris, there's this guy who was assistant seamstress, helping the seamstress. He was cool looking. Chris goes, "Can you play bass?" The guy goes, "I can fake it." He goes, "Okay, you're the bass player." So we just pressed this guy.
Put him in there.
He's on the dancing video, which is still out there. And I'm like wide-eyed. I'm down there. That's back when the catering budget's $100,000. Like you're going, whoa! The record companies were out of hand back then. But then we were still auditioning. And Rolly came. We had a little rehearsal studio down in the ghetto in San Francisco. We put together. We'd built it. I'd helped him. And Rolly shows up. I think one of the managers then found him. He just moved up from L.A. And I went, "Okay, he's the best guy." And I remember sitting in his old beat-up Nova on 3rd Street, back when 3rd Street was a real nasty part of town. And I was going, "Okay, look, Rolly, I know these guys are green, but come on. I think this is going to do something. Come help me out. Come with me." And he goes, "All right, I'll give it a shot." That's kind of how that started.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, you guys are rock stars over there in Europe, but
not rock stars,
doing pretty good.
Kept us alive.
Yeah. So, but still nothing happening back in the States. Now, this was before Wicked Game came out, or
yeah, that was 85, 86, 87, 88, 89. Wicked Game came out on Heart Shaped World. And we knew it was a hit because we played it every night, and people would lose their mind. They go, "Whoa!" And we said to the record companies, through the record company, we'd go, "Well, this is a hit. I mean, the people have spoken." They go, "Nah, no one wants a power ballad. Meanwhile, it was the period of the power ballad. So that's
right.
And so finally, God bless David Lynch. He changed our lives. David Lynch put it in Wild at Heart, or no, I'm already. Yeah, he put it in that movie. And Lee Chestnut, who was a program director at a big radio station, a P1, which is the main radio station in Atlanta, Georgia, saw the movie and goes, "What is that song? I know that song," and it drove him nuts. Finally went, "Oh, it's that Chris Isaak guy, Craig Isaak, whatever his name is." Right. And he started playing it. And like back then, when the P1 started playing it, well, all these other stations like in Tucson and all over the country would go, "Oh, what's Power 99 playing?" So all of a sudden it starts blowing up. This is like fall of '90, and our record company comes to us. We're playing some club, and we're still in the clubs, and they go, "We think Wicked Game's going to be a hit. It's getting played like crazy in the South." And sure enough, it starts blowing up, and then even more crazy, it's on the soundtrack to that David Lynch movie, and in England it becomes like a top 5 hit when there was not a song on the radio in England that had a guitar on it. I mean, it was Madonna. It was that period.
Yeah, it was all synths and drum machines and everything.
So they sent Chris and I to London to do all this promo, and we're like, we can't believe it. And then they said, if we just get through Christmas, then it just blew up and changed our lives forever.
So once you got into that band, then you stopped looking and playing with other groups then, or
on the main. At first, I kind of played around, but no, because Chris works a lot, you know.
Yes, I mean right from the get-go, he wanted to work a lot.
Yeah, well, back in those days, that's 34 years now. It's like, it's funny how things have changed. Like back then, we'd spend a year on a record.
Yeah.
Which is impossible now. No one does that.
No.
I mean, we would be ridiculous, but we can't do that anymore. But we still worked a lot, and we tour. We toured Europe every year. We go over and do promo, and then go over and play festivals and stuff. When we were alternative, we could still play festivals. And then we put out a record called Baja Sessions. I almost said it the Australian way. The Baja Sessions. That was like 95, I think. And it blew up in Australia. I sat there and saw the German president of the record company go, it's too country for Germany. So we let Europe alone for a while, and we went to Australia. We played Australia like crazy for the next 10 years. We went there like once or twice a year.
What was the big song on that record that they liked so much in Australia?
You got me. It was more like the whole record.
Okay.
The record did well, and in New Zealand too. But what a kick it was to go to Australia. Now it's weird. I've been to Australia so many times I can't count how many times, because I do the promotion with Chris, because I sing with him and I do a little chatter, and so we've gone over to Europe and Australia to do promo as well as concerts, and I fell in love with Australia. It's
a great place.
It is. It's a well-kept secret. It's a little smaller in the United States. It has less people than California. That solves everything. You know?
Yeah. Now, what about your role in the band? You are the main singer. You sing a lot with Chris.
I do. That's how come I'm so scratchy this morning. Again, Ross, this is luck and providence, too. It's like Chris and I have a natural blend.
Yeah, you do.
That's natural. And I went, well, that's job security. So for the longest time, it was only me. But then one day Chris comes in, and this is quite a long time ago. Okay, all right, everybody's going to sing. We're going to work out harmonies. And thank God he did, because it's kind of a lost art. We try to sing a lot, and it makes a difference. Because I'll go see a band, and there's like 7 guys on stage and no harmony. And I'm going, would it kill you to throw a third in there, somebody to step up to the mic? But yeah, I've been singing with Chris a long time.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
He definitely is. As everybody knows who listens to my podcast regularly, I've interviewed a few people from this camp now. Rolly just last week, and I work for you guys now. I'm the front of house mixer since last October, and yeah, the singing. Sometimes when you're singing with Chris, it's like you can hear the two parts, but it just blends so perfectly that sometimes I'm going, "Oh, is he singing?" Yeah. It's
well, that's a high compliment.
It's just perfect. It's just beautiful.
Well, I wouldn't dare put myself in his class, but I remember when we used to do overdubs in the studio, sometimes Chris would go, "Is that you or me?" Because we have that close of a blend. I mean, he's an outstanding singer. I mean, I hate to gush, but there's not a lot of good singers out there for whatever reason. I don't know.
No,
and it doesn't seem to matter to anybody. But I mean, I listen to somebody, I go, well, that's a good song, but God, they can't sing that well.
Well, and it's night after night, every single song.
Yeah,
he sings.
He's an Iron Man.
Just fantastic. I've never heard him hit a bad note,
right?
Ever.
He doesn't.
He just doesn't hit them, and his voice is strong.
Yeah.
And I mean, what else? There's so many other great things you could say about Chris Isaak. He's funny.
Yeah.
He's really a comedian on top of being.
Yeah. He's funny as hell.
He's just great. And you actually. I hope this is okay with you. I'm going to say you're kind of like the Ed McMahon.
Hi-oh.
Yeah, every night he always refers to you. Everything is like, right, Kenny? And he'll ask you. I love the part where sometimes you'll say, "So Kenny, do you have any advice for the young kids out there?" And you always come up with something very clever and funny.
Well, I got tired of him asking me that, so I said, I'm going to say something so he'll quit asking me. And I said, start on menthols.
Yeah.
He loved it, so he can't. Be careful what you do in front of Chris, because it'll stay in the show. If he thinks it's funny, that's staying. Oh,
well,
crap.
It is funny. It is very funny.
I got to say that every night.
Yeah, that's great. And so now the band is a little increased because now you have a percussionist in the band, and so the band's a little bigger, and it's a great band. You guys are just really tight, just fantastic, great show. And you, as a drummer, a couple of the things that I've noticed, being a front of house engineer and working with different drummers all the time, you're one of the few drummers that plays with a light touch. You aren't just smashing the drums all the time, and we've discussed this, you and I together, which I love because it really gives a nice balance to the drum kit. You're able to hear every little piece, everything in the drum kit, and you play with the ride cymbal, which and I mentioned this to you before. I hardly ever see anybody play with regal tip drumsticks.
That's weird. That's because that's all I've ever used.
Yeah.
The nylon tip, you mean?
Yeah, the nylon tip.
Right.
Yeah. And for people out there that don't know what that is, it's a regular drumstick, but the tip of the drumstick has a little piece of nylon instead of wood.
So it makes it a lot more clicky.
Yeah.
And I play 2Bs, which are really bigger than most, which is weird because you'd think mostly metal drummers would use that, but that's if you need extra power. But also, Ross, I play more brushes than most people.
Yes, you do.
In the rock, because because Chris does a lot of quiet to soft mid-tempo stuff, and as I would play with him, the sticks would be too harsh. I'd be playing a song going, we kind of go, that's not the feel. So I started experimenting with brushes. It was because of Chris's music. So I have like 3 or 4 types of brushes.
Yeah.
And most drummers don't do that.
Right.
And I love playing brushes.
You're the king of the brushes.
Well, it just evolved. It wasn't something I planned.
It's so appropriate.
Yeah. It fits his music.
It does. It's just perfect. It's just really, really great.
Yeah.
I really enjoy listening to you play. Now, during the early years, before you got going with Chris, were there any interesting or promising bands that you played with that you think could have, should have?
Well, like I said, I was good pals with Stevie Ray Vaughan before he was famous. We used to go out and drink beer together, and it's kind of weird to see your pal become a legend. It's like, well, we used to eat fried oysters and drink beer over at this restaurant, and but that was before he was famous. And I moved out to San Francisco, and he came out and played the San Francisco Blues Festival. Still, he's not famous yet. So I don't know what this was, 78 or something like that. And I took him and the guys around town, and Luann Barton was singing with him. She should have done something more. But then when I came to San Francisco, I played around with different people like Elvin Bishop, but mainly people that, not on the national scene, but just played sessions. And
were you singing then too?
Not as much. Good question, Rob. It wasn't as much because I'm lazy. So like you'd be in a band, I go, would it kill you to sing a couple of songs? Okay, I'll sing a couple. That means I got to bring a microphone stand too, but then when I started playing with Chris, and Chris, I guess he heard my speaking voice, and I started. This is '85, so I started singing. And I went, oh, we got a natural blend even then. Yeah. So I got into it, and I really enjoyed it. And it's funny, you get better at stuff. My ear got a lot better because, I'm playing drums. I don't have anything to reference. Right. And we did a Christmas album in '94. Beware of doing a Christmas album. That means you'll have to do a Christmas tours. But just a note to the wise. We did it down in L.A., and so Chris brought in some stunt singers, like a professional, guys, like it's like a 4-piece. That's what they do for a living. They write everything out.
Sing.
They're the guys that do LA sessions. Yes. They write everything down, and it's impossibly hard. So I remember we went and did a tour of Australia, and we're learning the vocal parts, and I'm learning it by ear. And Scott, the keyboard player, goes, "God, this is so hard, Kenny. I don't know how you do it. You don't have any reference point." And I go, it's hard for me too. And I remember we rehearsing these vocals over and over, and the Australian driver is going, "Oh my God, if I hear that song again," because we do these songs over and over. But singing's a blast. I love singing.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, have you ever been a lead singer in any of the bands that you worked with?
No, I never have. I used to sing a couple of songs, or a song. Chris would have me come out, and I'd sing a couple of songs, or one song. Like I'd sing California Sun by the Rivieras or something like that. And Chris would go back and play drums.
Oh, really?
Yes. And I loved it because after one song, Chris would be spent. Because, it's like you get, for me, like you just get this muscle memory, it's not that hard. But if you don't play drums all the time, he was like gassed after one song, like, oh.
Really? That's funny. Well, I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I haven't done that in a while.
So, in your early years, was drums the first instrument that you played?
Yeah, I remember begging my dad for like 2 years, like I'm 10. I got my first drum set on July 18th, 1966. That's Drum Day. Mm-hmm. I still celebrate it. My dad took me down in Borger, Texas, to Richard's music store. There were still music stores back then, and bought me a red satin flame Camco drum set that I still own.
You still own it?
I still own it.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I used to collect drums.
Uh-huh.
That's another interesting sidebar, or maybe it's not. But I quit collecting when eBay came in, because they took all the fun out of it. Because, Russ, I had so many drums, it was sick, because I traveled all the time. So I'd go to Europe. I took a bunch of drums out of Holland. I'd go to Australia, take drums. And in the United States, I had 50 snare drums. And God,
were you looking for anything in particular?
American, like old Ludwigs. The real prize would be from the 20s, but those are real hard to find. I still kept those.
Who made drums outside of America?
Well, Pearl, Yamaha, Sonar.
Yeah.
German.
All Japanese drums.
Yeah, Japanese, Sonars, German, Premier, English. But I'd concentrate on old Ludwig, Rogers, mainly. Slingerland, whatever. I'd bring them back over. For some reason, there was some store in Amsterdam that had, I think it's because there was American schools over there. They had all these vintage Ludwigs. I bought them all.
Wow.
Over the years. But I sold most of that.
Ludwig and Slingerland you hardly ever see anymore.
No.
I guess
you see Ludwig sometimes, but
yeah.
No.
Now, and another note on the drums, you play a snare drum that's unique. Out of all the drummers I've ever worked with, which is plenty, I've never seen anybody play a 15-inch snare.
Yeah, and that's through collecting, too. That's the tie-in. Nice tie-in, Ross. Through collecting, I would run into these 15-inch brass snare drums with lipstick tube lugs from the 20s. And come to find out, symphonies use those on the main. And one of the first ones I ever got was a 15x4, which is a complete crazy, and it was a beast. I mean, just it recorded like crazy. So when I got with DW many, many years ago, I said, you make a 15, right? And they happened to. Not many people did. And so I said, well, I'll take a 15 by 6.5. And I asked Garrison, the A&R guy, so am I the only guy that uses a 15? He goes, yeah. And I go, wow, that's weird. But, because I use wire brushes in a way they're not meant to be used. Like Baby Did a Bad, Bad Thing, that song, I'm slamming, but I'm using wire brushes. Right. But that 15 really barks. Uh-huh. And I just love them.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. It's a great snare sound.
It is.
And you have the snares really loose.
Right.
Which, when your tech, Phil, goes up there and he's playing it during the day, I'm going, well, it doesn't sound very good. But when you play it, it's totally different.
Right. That's like guitar.
You know how to make that snare sound really good.
Right.
Yeah. That's cool that you have something unique. So you didn't play any kind of instruments before the drums?
No.
You just wanted to be a drummer?
That's right. No.
And what age was that again?
12.
At 12? And
that's when I got my first kit.
Did you play in some little high school bands?
Yeah,
and stuff?
I've never had a job.
Never had any kind of a job other than
that. God bless drums. I mean, somehow, I might not have had much money sometimes, but
right.
No, like a lot of people in that period, I was in bands all through junior high. But when I got in high school, again, I'm living in a hick town, but there's a college over outside of Amarillo, and we used to play. My high school band played frat parties all the time, so we'd make good money doing that. Mm-hmm. But and then when I moved to Austin, there was just all kinds of music there.
Yeah,
and so I played with all kinds of people there.
Yeah, that's definitely a music town.
It is, and back then it was like a third or fourth the size it is now. So it was still fun. It was an oasis in the 70s. I mean, it was heaven. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. I mean, I'm a kid from a little town. There was a lot of people like me there from a little small Texas town that went, well, when I graduate, I'm not going out. I'm not leaving this place, Groover's Paradise,
Were you able to make enough money to live on?
Yeah, it was cheap there, too. Don't forget. Yeah, I did. But then I realized I'd hit a ceiling, which probably isn't there, like I said, now. But back then, it's funny. I haven't told many people this, but one time I was thinking about leaving at this time around 76, 77, and I read an interview with Steve Miller, who's from Dallas. And somebody, college paper, goes, would you ever think about moving to Texas, back to Texas? And he goes, well, I love Texas, but I can't do there what I need to do. And I went, whoa, I know exactly what he's talking about. I mean, mm-hmm. I was 23 and ambitious, and so I don't think of myself as terribly ambitious, but, I got my car and moved to San Francisco and tried to make a go of it.
And you were thinking that San Francisco was a mecca and a good place to start.
Well, it had a music history, and like I said, I knew people there, so I wasn't going. I didn't have a job. I just went in blind, man. I can't believe I did it in retrospect because, most of my peers in Austin still live there.
Yeah, but you were young and you were ambitious, and you had probably no responsibilities.
Right, I didn't, but I still, when I look back, I went, what were you thinking? I mean, I'm glad I did. I fell totally in love with with San Francisco and Austin, but I saw California, and oh my gosh, there's so many great musicians, and there's all this work, at least in the 70s, and everybody was so cool, and I just somehow fit right in, and in retrospect, whether right or wrong, the way I played helped me. I mean, and because I brought a Texas feel, which nobody, I mean, it's limiting on one hand. Like if you're in the studio, they do some reggae, I'm out, like, or do some bebop, sorry, I'm out. But if you just want a good blues feel, or even in the rock, I think I have a little different feel than most guys, rightly or wrongly.
Yeah.
But that helped me get. Chris told me that he couldn't find a drummer forever. They looked for 2 years because he wanted somebody that could play country stuff and blues R&B, because he was a little bit of both. And he said he liked the way I swung. So I said, that's how come I got the gig.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow.
I mean, I can't believe 34 years later, I can't believe when it comes out of my mouth that, because most bands only lasted 3 or 4 years back then.
Oh, it's
if that.
It's very rare for bands to last this
I know,
long.
I know. I know.
I mean, the only ones that have lasted, long time like this are like, Aerosmith and the Stones.
Or my neighbors, the Grateful Dead.
Grateful Dead, yeah.
And so, hence, I have a more of an affinity for them. I go, because I have a small idea what that takes, like it's impossible in some ways.
It's pretty amazing that you, Rolly, and Chris could stay together that long and not have some kind of falling out.
Right.
And then the other two guys, Raphael and Scott, they've been with the band for about 14, 15 years.
Forever,
too.
yeah.
Yeah, so, well, it says a lot about Chris, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those guys are so much fun to play with. They're so talented.
Absolutely, yeah.
Raphael's like a savant. I mean, everybody thinks they can play bongos. You can't. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
He can.
Right.
Everybody thinks they can play maracas. I'm telling you, you can't. He can. I mean,
it looks easier than it is.
It does.
Definitely.
I'll be up front doing something. He'll be playing bongos, and I'll just kind of stop and go, that's incredible. I mean, he's just awesome. He's so talented. Because I don't want to brag on him too much, but he told me that, he moved to Miami from Cuba, so he got in with the old dudes. He didn't really play rock.
No.
And it shows.
Yeah.
In the best of ways.
Yeah, he was playing with the
old
more
dudes.
Latino type.
Yeah, the
bands.
old dudes in Miami.
Right, I'm going to get him on here next. I got to talk to him.
Oh, he's awesome. He's soft spoken, but he's very talented.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and he was with the Miami Sound Machine forever, for a long time.
He's played with everybody.
Yeah, he has. While in Chris's band, then, got some juicy stories for us about something that's happened on the road or in the studio that people might be interested in.
Ooh,
something bad or good.
Oh, I don't know. It's hard to think of. There's so many times. I'm just trying to. It's hard to come up on the spot. I guess I should have done some homework, Ross. But I don't want to sound like a putz, but doing this, you do the extraordinary is normal. I mean, I've done stuff that anybody else would go, "Oh my God." Well, here's an example. I'm a baseball fan. Chris and I tell Boston Red Sox this, and they just faint over it. We sang the national anthem lots of times, Chris and I. We sang for Ted Williams Day at Fenway Park in Boston, and Ted Williams was still alive. I mean, and they just can't believe it. We sang the national anthem all over the place, lots of times in San Francisco, and one time we played at halftime for the Niners at Candlestick, but Scott was in Japan, so we hired Booker T, Washington, from Booker T and the MGs.
Yeah.
And we realized that Green Onions and Baby Did a Bad Thing are very similar. I've met a lot of people, a lot of my heroes. One time, Chris and I were, they're coming now, Ross. One time we were in South Carolina and playing across the street. I said, "Hey, Chris, Merle Haggard's playing across the street." Now, Chris is from Stockton and Merle Haggard's from Bakersfield. They're like Central California Dust Bowl guys, and I grew up with Merle Haggard music. And Chris goes, "Well, let's go meet him." And because he's Chris, he can make that happen. So he goes, "Come along." And we went over and sat on his bus and talked to him. He was so gracious. and stuff like that. We met Buck Owens, in God, we've met so many great musicians over the years. I'm trying to think of anybody I'm leaving out, but I'm leaving out everybody. But that's kind of cool. I'm just a little kid from Borger, Texas. I never expected to, meet John Fogerty or anybody. There's so many people I've met over the years.
Yeah, because you guys have also not only being a headliner, but you've also been opening acts for some pretty big acts too, right? And you probably met them. Yeah,
over the years. We opened up for the Allman Brothers. That's kind of a thrill. I was... it wasn't a long tour, but that was in '89, and Dickie Betts was still there. They were great, and I just met so many wonderful players.
Mm-hmm. Travel. How do you feel about travel?
Well, that's part of the deal. That's the I think back, and there can't be hardly anybody in the United States been to Australia more than me. I have to be in the 1 percentile, or even Europe. I've been to Paris untold. 20 times. I don't know how many times, and been all over America. It's gotten to the point, Ross, when I get my schedule for a U.S. tour, I look to see if there's someplace I haven't been. Mm-hmm. And there's usually a couple,
Right. There's still some more out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of places. There's a lot of places, but I've been doing it for a long time. And I know my way around London. I know where the good places are. I know Sydney like the back of my hand, and Melbourne, and New York, and Chicago, and there's so many. America has so many great cities.
What's your favorite places in the United States?
Man, that's a tough one. Chicago, certainly. Philly, very underrated. We're on our way to Philly for a day off, and we just had some there. Of course, San Diego. Of course, Texas. Austin's always a favorite. And there's so many. Seattle's awesome. Let's see, Salt Lake City's strangely cool. You might not think it is, but it's a neat town. They've got a AAA baseball stadium there, which we've actually played at. But I'd already been to baseball games there. It's fabulous. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. And I know my way around most of those towns, to a degree. Like, here's the place you get your hair cut. There's a pharmacy right over here. Or Denver. I know that because I've been there so many times.
Yeah. How about outside the United States? Is it Australia is your number one spot?
Big on Paris.
Oh,
big on Paris.
That is a cool place.
It is. That has my heart. I'll never forget the first time I went there. I was like, oh my God! I went there in '85. It's funny. When this band, the first album came out, like I was saying, we played for 3 weeks in San Francisco. We did these residencies. We did 3 weeks at some little bar in L.A., the Anti-Club. We played 3 nights a week. The other 3 nights, the Red Hot Chili Peppers played. They were just starting, too. And all these stars came out. Like Madonna came to see us. Fogerty. Dave Alvin was a big star. Still is. Sorry, Dave. And that was pretty heady. And then we went to Europe in the fall for like a month. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. And I saw Paris and went, I'm all in. And I know my way to Paris, too.
Definitely a beautiful city. Yeah.
It's awesome, and I just love it. Like I said, we used to go to Germany, and we did whole tours of France. That we did one time. We just did 3 weeks.
Just all France.
I know. Wow. Places I'll probably never see again, but
yeah,
that was pretty neat.
Well, I know, speaking of France, you're also kind of a connoisseur of food.
Well, I don't know about that. That's part of it, too.
Well, I know you're very particular about the restaurants you go to, and you're critical and praise good stuff.
Well, I try not to criticize, but it's like, that's part of the cool stuff. You go over there, and I don't speak any of the languages, but okay is one thing that everybody knows. And I've had some funny things happen, though. Real quick, I was in a restaurant in Paris, and they have chitlin sausage, a dish. I can't remember what it's called. I don't speak French, and it comes with mustard sauce, which it's intestines is what it is in a sauce. And so I say, I'll take that. This little old lady was a waitress, and she didn't speak any English. She got panicked because she said, this big guy's going to lose his mind and go crazy when he finds out what it is. I go, no, it's okay, it's okay. I've had a bunch of those kind of things.
Any kind of mishaps on the road, like bus breaking down? You guys get stuck somewhere? Or?
Yeah, there's a lot of those, but actually not too many, thank God. But I've been snowed in Kentucky and stuff like that. Not terribly interesting, but back in Europe, back before the EU, God, listen to me. When you had to cross borders, when they had borders, it could be hairy. Yeah, I mean they'd strip your bus clean, and you just had to stand around. And we didn't have anything, but it's like they'd take every piece of gear off and put it all back on. That was pretty common. But
you probably went into East Berlin.
Yeah,
back in the days when the wall was still
awesome. There. That was awesome. God, Berlin was awesome back then. It was like, because they were on the verge, because they're basically surrounded by East Germany. So you go through this little corridor, and the bus driver, who was European, goes, notice all these guards are from Mongolia. And I go, why is that? He goes, because Mongolia is so much worse than East Berlin.
Oh, wow.
Because East Berlin was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Because I remember playing there right after the wall came down, and East Berlin was like this gray town. And West Berlin had trees. It was all colorful. And it took them a while to get that together.
Still looks different there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've been back
Different
there.
areas of East Berlin look totally different from the old West Berlin.
Yeah, it take a while to come back from all that.
Yeah, sure will. As far as the music business, did you feel the crunch, the difference in the music business, around 2000 when things started to change with the record budgets and
sure,
pretty much everything changed. Napster kind of came in and changed the world.
Yeah, of course, not terribly personally, luckily, knock on wood. But back in the 80s and 90s, oh my gosh, the excess. I mean, the record companies were just, they took us out to a promo tour, for instance, which seems like so arcane now. They would fly Chris and I over to Europe. They'd work us to death, don't get me wrong. We'd do interview after interview. We'd go to London, stay in the best hotel, best restaurants. Hamburg, same thing. Paris, same thing. Madrid, same thing. Then we do America, go to New York, go to all the towns, stay in the finest hotels, go to the finest restaurants. I mean, I'd have to listen to Chris yak for all day, but and then we'd sing songs. We'd go to Sweden. I remember all the Scandinavian countries, and that all went away. I mean, I remember being at a dinner in Madrid, and the record company goes, I don't remember what year this was, probably 92, not sure. And the record company guys go, our business is off 30%. I don't know how much longer we can do this, right? That's a lot.
That was 92. That's way before it really...
I don't know if it was 92. No, it was later than that. Sorry, you're right. It was later than that.
Because 92 is still going pretty good.
Yeah, right. 95 was a long time ago. I'm confused, Ross.
That's okay.
But I remember when it started slowly.
Yeah.
And people were going, uh-oh. And, like the record company, there's a record company branch. We were with Warner's at the time. We'd go, every major city had a Warner office. Fully staffed, a major domo there. And it was just amazing. And then there was the era that the radio stations ruled. You remember they used to have these things called Rock into Summer with R99, or whatever. And they'd get all these bands to play for free. Mm-hmm. And we did a lot of those. I don't remember what year that was either, but that's before the radio stations, they were powerful. But
yeah. Yeah, it's definitely changed, hasn't it?
Completely.
It really changed the business.
Luckily, people still come out to see us, and I'm so grateful for that. Because that's so we still could survive that way.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, every night Chris says, how many people have come to see us before? And almost every night, it's a large percentage of the audience, 60, 70%, or even more sometimes.
And I'm so grateful for that.
They just keep coming back.
Well, it's funny you mentioned it because when Scott Plunkett, our keyboard player, he's played everybody from Stevie Nicks to Boz Scaggs, Don Henley. He goes, wow, you have people that come back all the time. Like some people come for 4 or 5 shows a tour. I go, well, they didn't do that in your other bands? He goes, no. And this is another funny thing about Scott. When he first joined the band, Chris will turn around and go, let's do this song. It's not on the set list. And his other bands, everything was completely sequenced.
Right.
And so, Scott doesn't care now because he knows how it goes. But in the early days, Chris would go, okay, here, let's do this song. And Scott would go to me, what song is this? I go, it's 3 chords. You'll get it. And,
Right, yeah.
It's just different.
Yeah. It's that's an amazing thing. And you guys always jump in. And even if you don't, Chris will just do it by himself.
Well, I know all of his songs,
Yeah.
Phew, we know 1 million songs, that's for sure.
Yeah. The records. Chris's records. Now, do you play on...
I play on...
most everything? Or?
I play on some of them, and some of them I don't. It varies,
Depending on the producer, probably.
Yeah. I played on the whole record. I played on part of the record, or, sang on this, sang on that. But I'm on a lot of it,
Yeah.
Because I can hear my ride cymbal. I told you this before. Because I have a unique ride cymbal, too. It's a 22-inch platinum ping Zildjian. And I've had it for 100 years, and it's like an ice pick. You can, and like am I on that song? Oh yeah, there's the ride. I can hear the ride. It's that unique.
Yeah, it is unique. Yeah, I noticed it right away. I was like, wow, I can hear the guy's ride cymbal. It's like most of the time, it's hard to hear. Even if you have a mic right on it, you still can't hear it.
Oh, it's ice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
and
nice
Zildjian used to, they'd pull it because they quit making them a long time ago. And every now and then they'd pull one out and give it to me, and like, hey, we found a 16. You want this? And I go, yep, I'll take any platinum. I have some platinum hi hats I play too, 14s, and they're really nice and crisp.
Yeah. Any advice for upcoming musicians?
Man, Ross, I don't know what you do if you're 20 now. I really don't. But I think it helps to just play with as many people as you can, and try to garner as much as you can. Try to sing. That's helped me. And if you're a drummer, you can't have too good a time. I mean, you could, try to work with a metronome, but other than that, just play. Put yourself out there. Play every gig you can. That's the way I did it anyway. And,
I think that's good advice.
And you learn
out
so
there and
much.
Play.
You go, oh well, that guy's playing kind of different.
Yeah.
And I used to, when I was starting out, I made up a bunch of cards. Every gig, I said, call me, and they would. Like you might be their third choice, but by golly, you got a job. So.
Yeah. It's amazing that you've made it through all these years and never had to do anything else.
I know. It sounds like kind of creepy, but
no, I'm fortunate. I think it's a big accomplishment,
and I know it's fortunate. I mean, and I think the nature of the instrument, too. I mean, like when I got to San Francisco, there was 1 million guitar players. And there was drummers, but, not a ton. And so I got to move right in pretty good, but I've been fortunate. I know that.
Yeah, and so I know that you're happy with doing what you're doing. You have any plans for the future besides playing, or do you do anything? Any kind of other hobbies? I found out that Rolly's a painter. Right?
Yes, he's quite a painter. No, I'm pretty one-dimensional, Ross. I play drums, and that's about it.
And you say you live in San Francisco. You planning on staying there?
I live north of San Francisco in Marin County. Yeah, I hope to. I love it there. It's it's funny. When this band started in the 80s, it was the whole band and crew all lived in San Francisco, and there'd be 20 of us marching all dressed in black through the San Francisco airport, and now there's me. I'm the only one left.
Isn't that funny?
I'm the only guy left.
Being that it's like the most expensive place in the entire United States to live, I guess that's not too big of a surprise.
No, it's not. But it's
even Chris is moving away from it.
I love it. I mean, I live in a really pretty special place, and I mean, there's other great parts of America, but I hope to be able to stay there. Everything looks good, and I love it there.
And getting back to the drums a little bit, so now you're endorsed by DW?
Yeah, DW.
Zildjian?
I've been with Zildjian since 85. I mean, so almost the beginning. I mean, I went after that with tooth and nail because I played on crap for most of my life, you know. And I'm with Regal Tip sticks and Remo drums.
Yeah.
And Paul Mitchell hair products.
Yeah. All right.
But, I mean, that's another thing. Is I feel fortunate I get to play on really great gear, and that makes a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And Chris, the touring he does it the right way. You got backline techs that travel with us, so you got your own guy. And
no, I'm blessed. I believe you me. I mean, we stay in nice hotels. We got... You know, civilians don't realize that tour buses are just the best. I mean, flying's horrible.
Oh.
I know you know, but it's like,
yeah.
I mean, like some tours we'll start out, we'll have to fly until we get our tour bus. We go, oh my God, when are we getting the tour bus? And, you know, like 4 days later, and like, oh my God, thank goodness.
Yeah, like getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get a 6 o'clock flight so that you can go somewhere so that you can get there on time to set up and play that night.
Oh,
it's the worst.
Well, I always like to say an hour flight takes all day.
Yeah.
You know, and
it does.
Oh gosh, like last night we were playing down in Virginia, and it was just like a jungle. It was so humid. And then you get on your air-conditioned bus, and it's like, oh, thank you, Jesus. It was so awesome. Like,
right.
You know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And we've all been traveling around on these wonderful tour buses. They're just the best.
Yeah, people don't realize that oh yeah, Chris, so maybe you don't get a hotel. Well, you guys always go to a hotel, but the crew, we don't go to a hotel every night. We'll just go straight to the gig.
Right.
We sleep on the bus, but actually you get more sleep that way.
Right.
Than you do when you have to break up your night.
Well, you know, you get your sea legs. I mean, you're right. We got in here at 2:30 last night, and I go to my room. I don't plug anything in. I just put my air conditioner, set it to stun, and then I go to bed and sleep for. It was great.
Yeah,
I'm not, and the redundancies part of this job. This hotel we're sitting at, I've been staying here for 20 years. It's a great hotel. I had a memory that I remember going over to. There's a big mall over here, and I'm going to the Apple store to get an airport card. You know, so I could make my laptop where you could use it in wireless. I'm like, good Lord, what was that in the Eisenhower administration? I mean,
yeah.
But
things have most certainly changed. Yeah.
It has. I mean, it has. And everybody's online, and
it's a different world.
I don't know how we lived. I used to tour before cell phones and laptops. How do we do that? I have no idea.
Everything was done with fax machines and stuff. Yeah. It seems so archaic.
It does, and they'd put your day sheet under the door. Now we don't have a tour book any longer. We used to have a tour book till joy. Now it's an app. We have a tour app.
Yeah.
Funny that.
Yeah, it most certainly is.
That was a long time ago that we had tour books.
You and I are very close to the same age, so a lot of the things that we can talk about are very, very similar. I remember getting that tour book, and we'd call it the Book of Lies.
It's right.
Most things were wrong.
Now it's the app of lies. I know. I missed that tour book for several years. Gosh, I missed that thing. But you'd lose it, and anyway.
All right. What else do you like to do, Kenny, besides touring and playing drums and stuff?
Not much. I'm a homebody. I mean, me and my wife, we just...
you like to go fishing or anything like that?
I told you, I'm one-dimensional. I just like to stay home and hang out in my town and I don't do anything.
You walk a lot, don't you?
Yeah, I do. And
I always see you out walking.
Well, I'm one of the few... Me and Raphael are the few members that get out of our hotel room and go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I see Raphael out all the time, and we're always like, "Where's a good cup of coffee?" He goes down there, you know.
But it's good that you're doing that, and you got some exercise. And
but yeah, I'm one-dimensional because we play just about as much as I don't want to play much more. Well, we tour quite a bit, so I mean, last year we went to Australia and Europe and America, and that was pretty full. I don't think we're going overseas this year, but
no, I think we're running out of time for that.
The other funny thing, though, too, is that people find strange. Here's something they find strange. I'll fly to the other side of the world for one show. I've done that more than once.
Yep.
We've flown all the way to South Africa for one show. With like a 15-hour layover in Frankfurt. We've flown all the way to Switzerland for one show. We've flown all the way to London for one show. You're going, don't they have any bands in London? Why us?
Wow.
We played for a bunch of Russian oligarchs in London. That was crazy.
Mostly private shows?
They're all private. Well, actually, it's not true. One time at Christmas, the promoter that we work with had a big Christmas show in Perth, which is the most remote city on Earth. Most Australians haven't been there. It's on the west coast. It's a beautiful city. It's on the west coast of Australia, out in the middle of nowhere. We went all the way to Perth for one show, to play the Christmas show.
And you can't fly directly to Perth.
You cannot. Good knowledge. It actually was in Fremantle, which is down. The other thing about Perth is they have a 1:00 in the morning flight that goes to Sydney, so you can catch the first thing smoking back to the States.
Wow.
And we did that for one show. That was crazy.
Oh,
I know.
Wore you out.
Oh,
right?
that.
Yeah, I've done a few of those myself.
Yeah.
Gone to Spain for one show.
Yeah.
Turn around, you finish the show, you go to bed, you get up and fly back home.
Spain's a wonderful country, though.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah. They got good food there.
They do. They got good everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I think that's about it, Ross.
I think so. All right, Kenny.
Thanks a lot.
I really appreciate you coming
You bet.
and doing this with me, and I'm slowly going through the whole band here and crew. And
Well, I didn't want to get too techie on you because,
No.
and I didn't.
No.
That drives me crazy.
All right. Well, we'll sign off then. And
All right.
say goodbye to
Adios.
Adios. See you, Kenny.
All right.
Bye-bye.
The Rossaround Backstage podcast wants to thank my good friend, Tim Hines, for the original music that you are listening to now. We are currently looking for sponsors for the Rossaround Backstage podcast so that we can continue to bring you interesting stories like the one you just heard. I can be reached through Facebook or email me at rosspallone.com. Thank you for listening.